A woman will never walk up to you and say, "Hey, I'm attracted to you. Please make a move." That's not how it works. Instead, she'll do something far more subtle. She'll touch something. And if you don't know what that something is, congratulations. You just missed your shot, and she's already moved on to the guy who actually pays attention. Here's the part that's going to sting a little. According to research published in the Journal of Nonverbal Behavior, more than 90% of emotional communication happens without a single word being spoken. 90%. Which means the most important conversation a woman is having with you is usually happening in silence. And tonight, I'm going to teach you how to hear it. By the way, I'm Lauren. And if you've ever walked away from an interaction wondering, wait, was she flirting with me? Then this video might completely change the way you see women forever. And before we go any further, I want you to do something for me. Comment below with one body language signal from a woman that has always confused you. Seriously, was it eye contact, touching, smiling, acting nervous? I read those comments and I promise you, you are not nearly as alone as you think. And if you already know a guy who constantly misses obvious signals from women, send him this video. You might actually save his dating life. Because here's what most men never realize. Women are not nearly as complicated as they've been taught to believe. In fact, women are constantly revealing attraction through tiny unconscious behaviors. The problem is that most men are listening for words while ignoring the body entirely. And the body almost never lies. Think about your own experiences for a second. Have you ever talked to a woman who seemed engaged, smiling, touching things, leaning in? But then later you convinced yourself she was just being nice? Or maybe you hesitated because you didn't want to misread the situation. That hesitation is more common than you think. Modern dating has made people terrified of reading signals incorrectly, so men shut down their instincts altogether. But here's the irony. Women often expect you to notice subtlety. Attraction, especially feminine attraction, is rarely direct in the beginning. It's layered, it's emotional, it's psychological. Women test safety before openness. They test awareness before vulnerability. And one of the biggest tests is whether you can notice what she's communicating without her having to spell it out for you. That's why this matters. Because when a woman feels emotionally seen by a man, when she realizes he notices the little things, her attraction deepens almost instantly. Not because he's perfect looking, not because he used some rehearsed pickup line, but because awareness feels rare, attention feels intimate. And the first thing women unconsciously touch when attraction starts building is their hair. Now, I know some of you are already rolling your eyes thinking, everybody knows women play with their hair. No. Most men think they know what it means, but they completely miss the psychology underneath it. There's a massive difference between functional grooming and attraction-driven touching. A woman fixing her hair because it's windy is not the same thing as a woman slowly sweeping her hair behind her ear while staring directly into your eyes. One is maintenance, the other is invitation. Behavioral researchers have studied this for decades. When attraction activates the nervous system, dopamine and adrenaline create excess physical energy in the body. That energy needs somewhere to go. And very often, the hands become the outlet. That's why women start twisting strands around their fingers, flipping their hair over one shoulder, or repeatedly touching the same area while talking to a man they're drawn to. But here's the part most men miss. Hair touching is not just nervousness. It's presentation. It's her body instinctively saying, "Notice me." And when she pulls her hair to one side, exposing her neck, that's even bigger. Because the neck is one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body, exposing it unconsciously signals trust and openness. Evolutionary psychologists have pointed out that vulnerable body exposure is deeply tied to attraction patterns in humans. In simple terms, when a woman feels drawn to you, her body starts relaxing around you. It stops guarding itself. I remember once being at a rooftop party in Chicago years ago. There was this guy standing near the edge of the balcony, talking to a group of people. He wasn't the loudest guy there. He wasn't trying to dominate the room. but he had this calm confidence about him. And I caught myself doing something embarrassing. Every single time he looked at me, I touched my hair. Not consciously, not strategically. I just did it. And the crazy part, I didn't even realize it until my friend teased me afterward and said, "Lauren, you literally played with your hair every time he spoke." That's how unconscious these signals are. Women are often communicating attraction before their conscious mind fully catches up to it. And that brings us to another signal that is incredibly powerful: touching the lips. Now listen carefully, because this one gets misunderstood all the time. If a woman lightly bites her lower lip, presses a finger against her mouth, slowly applies lip balm, or subtly touches her lips while maintaining eye contact with you, she is drawing attention there intentionally, even if she doesn't fully realize she's doing it. Why? Because lips are psychologically tied to intimacy. Studies using eye-tracking technology have shown that men naturally focus on a woman's lips during attraction-based interactions. Women know this instinctively. That's literally part of why lipstick became culturally significant in the first place. It enhances contrast. It draws visual focus. So, when a woman touches her lips around you, she's amplifying attention toward one of the most sensual areas of her face. And here's where men often sabotage themselves. Instead of calmly recognizing the signal, they panic internally. They overthink. They freeze. Or worse, they become too aggressive too quickly because they assume attraction means instant permission. No, attraction is not permission. It's invitation to connect deeper. That distinction matters. A socially intelligent man understands that body language is about awareness, not entitlement. The goal isn't to score. The goal is to understand emotional openness and respond appropriately. That's what creates chemistry. And honestly, women can feel the difference immediately. A man who notices signals without becoming desperate feels safe, grounded, attractive. A man who reacts with pressure feels emotionally dangerous almost instantly. This is why emotional intelligence matters more than most men realize. You can be average-looking and still become magnetic if a woman feels emotionally understood around you. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked attraction signals in existence: jewelry touching. This one is incredibly revealing because it happens during emotional activation. If she starts spinning her ring, tugging her necklace, touching her earrings, or tracing jewelry while talking to you, her nervous system is trying to regulate emotional stimulation. In psychology, this is called a self-soothing behavior. The body experiences heightened emotion, excitement, nervousness, anticipation, and channels that energy somewhere physical. And the more emotionally invested she becomes, the more these little displacement behaviors increase. But there's another layer here. A necklace sits close to the chest. A ring sits on the hand. Earrings frame the face. These aren't random areas. Women unconsciously draw attention toward the parts of themselves they want noticed. And before you misunderstand me, this does not mean every woman touching jewelry wants you. Context matters. Always. This is why social awareness requires patterns, not isolated moments. One signal means nothing. 5 signals together mean everything. That's the mistake inexperienced men make. They obsess over one tiny behavior while ignoring the entire emotional atmosphere of the interaction. Attraction is cumulative. You have to read clusters. Eye contact plus smiling plus leaning in plus self-touching plus lingering conversation. Now you're seeing a real picture. And speaking of escalation, we need to talk about the moment a woman touches you first. Gentlemen, this is huge. If a woman touches your arm during conversation, brushes your shoulder, lightly taps your hand while laughing, or creates repeated excuses for physical contact, she is crossing an invisible social boundary intentionally. Touch changes psychology instantly. Studies have repeatedly shown that brief physical touch increases feelings of trust, connection, and emotional warmth between people. Women know this instinctively. That's why a woman who likes you often begins introducing small moments of contact before anything romantic is openly discussed. She's testing chemistry, testing comfort, testing your response. And this is where so many men fail. They either completely ignore the touch because they're shocked, or they overreact and make the moment awkward. The right response is subtle confidence. If she touches your arm while laughing, smile. Hold eye contact a little longer. Relax into it. Maybe lightly mirror the energy later in the conversation. That's how flirting works emotionally. It's mutual participation. I'll tell you something brutally honest from the female perspective. Nothing is more deflating than putting yourself out there subtly and watching a man completely miss it. Imagine tossing someone a ball gently, and instead of catching it, they just let it hit their chest and fall to the ground. That's what it feels like when a woman creates physical connection and gets absolutely nothing emotionally back. And sometimes women stop trying after that. Not because they weren't interested, but because attraction without reciprocation becomes emotionally embarrassing. Now there's another signal that happens all the time in restaurants, bars, coffee shops, and dinner dates. And once you see it, you'll never unsee it again. Watch what she does with her glass. Seriously, if she slowly traces the rim, slides her finger along the stem, gently rotates the cup while looking at you, or absent-mindedly plays with the edge while smiling, that is often displaced sensual energy. Her body wants physical expression, but social boundaries are still in place, so the energy transfers into objects. Former behavioral experts have discussed how object interaction often reflects emotional engagement during attraction. The object becomes symbolic. And before some guy in the comments says, maybe she's just bored, let me stop you right there. Context matters again. Is she maintaining eye contact? Is she leaning toward you? Is she laughing easily? Does she seem emotionally invested in the interaction? Then the gesture means something very different. Attraction is never about one isolated movement. It's about emotional congruence. And the men who understand this become dramatically better at reading women because they stop looking for magic tricks and start paying attention to emotional patterns. And trust me, the next signs get even deeper because we're about to talk about the behaviors women display when attraction becomes emotional instead of just physical. That's where everything changes. Now, here's where things become incredibly interesting, because once a woman moves beyond surface-level attraction, her body language changes in ways most men completely misinterpret. And one of the biggest signs is something that looks almost ordinary on the surface. She starts adjusting herself around you, straightening her shirt, fixing her sleeve, checking her hair again, smoothing her skirt, reapplying lip balm, pulling her posture taller when you walk into the room. This is called preening behavior, and it exists across almost every species studied in courtship psychology. But in humans, it carries emotional meaning beyond appearance. When a woman starts subtly fixing herself in your presence, she's unconsciously saying, "Your opinion of me matters." That's important, because people do not emotionally invest energy into impressing someone they feel indifferent toward. I want you to think about this honestly. Have you ever noticed how different someone behaves around a person they truly like versus someone they merely tolerate? Around attraction, people become hyper-aware of themselves. Suddenly, posture matters. Voice tone changes. Movements soften. Attention sharpens. That's not performance. That's biology mixed with emotional vulnerability. And women especially tend to express attraction through presentation and responsiveness, rather than direct verbal pursuit in the early stages. But here's the dangerous mistake many men make. They assume attraction means certainty. It doesn't. A woman can be attracted to you and still feel nervous. She can want your attention and still fear rejection. She can give signals while secretly hoping you're emotionally intelligent enough to recognize them gently instead of forcing intensity too fast. That's why pacing matters so much. One of the sexiest traits a man can have is emotional calibration. Noticing without pressuring, leading without overwhelming, responding without becoming needy. And honestly, that's rare, which is exactly why emotionally aware men stand out so dramatically. Now, let's talk about one of the most misunderstood signs of attraction in female psychology, the chin resting signal. This one shocks men every single time because they almost always read it backwards. When a woman rests her chin on her hand while listening to you, especially while maintaining soft eye contact, most men assume she's bored. Wrong. Very wrong. In many cases, she's deeply engaged. This gesture is called facial framing, and psychologically, it's incredibly intimate. When women cradle their face, touch their cheek, or softly support their chin while looking at someone they like, they are unconsciously drawing attention toward their expressions, eyes, and emotional reactions. It's a vulnerable posture, a soft posture, and softness around a man is one of the clearest signs of feminine comfort. Because women do not soften around men, they feel emotionally guarded around. Think about that carefully. Attraction isn't just excitement, it's relaxation. It's emotional permission. It's the nervous system saying, I feel safe enough to open here. That's why some of the strongest attraction signals actually look calm instead of dramatic. A woman who feels deeply connected to you often becomes quieter, softer, slower, more attentive. She locks into your words. She studies your face while you speak. She smiles unconsciously at small things. And the wild part? Many men completely miss these moments because they expect attraction to look loud and obvious. But feminine attraction is often subtle, precisely because women are socially conditioned to protect vulnerability. And this brings us to something men desperately need to understand. Not every attractive woman is going to chase you. Sometimes she's waiting to see whether you can read emotional nuance. That's the test. Can you notice energy? Can you recognize comfort? Can you pick up on emotional openness without needing giant flashing signs? Because women are constantly evaluating that in men. Not consciously all the time, but psychologically. A man who notices subtle emotional shifts feels socially intelligent. A man who bulldozes past them feels disconnected. And this becomes even more important when attraction turns into emotional tension. You know that moment when conversation suddenly feels slower? The eye contact lasts just a little too long? Neither person wants to break the silence? That tension is incredibly important. Most men ruin it because they panic and start talking too much. Listen to me carefully. Chemistry needs space. Some of the strongest attraction moments happen in silence. Not awkward silence. Present silence. Connected silence. The kind where both people are suddenly hyper-aware of each other. And women feel that deeply. I remember sitting across from a man once during a late-night coffee date. We had been talking for over an hour. At one point, the conversation slowed down, and instead of rushing to fill the silence, he just looked at me and smiled softly. That was it. No performance, no desperate joking, no trying to impress me. Just calm presence. And I swear to you, that moment created more attraction than anything he had said the entire night. Because confidence is often quiet, nervousness performs, presence connects. That distinction changes everything. And this is exactly why women pay attention to how you respond to their signals. When a woman gives subtle indicators of attraction, she's often asking one unconscious question. Can this man emotionally handle intimacy? Not physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. Can he stay grounded? Can he read the room? Can he make me feel comfortable instead of pressured? Can he notice me without trying to dominate me? That's what emotionally mature attraction feels like. And if you're learning something valuable right now, take 2 seconds and like the video. It really helps the channel reach more people who need this kind of insight. And if you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe to Lauren Mind Game, because this channel is all about understanding attraction, psychology, confidence, and the emotional dynamics most people never teach you. Now, let's go even deeper because there's one attraction signal women display that almost nobody talks about. Mirroring. This is huge psychologically. When a woman unconsciously mirrors your behavior, your posture, your tone, your pace of speaking, or your gestures, her brain is synchronizing with yours emotionally. Humans naturally mirror people they feel connected to. If you lean back and a few moments later she leans back too, Notice it. If you lower your voice and she softens hers, notice it. If you smile and she mirrors the expression almost instantly, notice it. This is one of the clearest signs of subconscious rapport, and what makes mirroring powerful is that it usually happens automatically. People don't fake synchronization well. The nervous system does it naturally when emotional connection forms. Now, let me say something extremely important before we continue. Body language is not mind reading. No single gesture guarantees attraction. And emotionally healthy men understand that. The goal here is not to assume every woman wants you. The goal is awareness, respectful awareness, because confident men don't force connections. They recognize them. That's a massive difference. And honestly, women feel safer around men who understand nuance. Now, here's another thing women rarely admit openly. A lot of attraction dies not because the chemistry wasn't there, but because the man never acted. He hesitated too long, overanalyzed everything, stayed emotionally passive, and eventually the woman interpreted that passivity as disinterest or lack of confidence. This happens constantly. Women often give multiple openings before emotionally withdrawing, not because they're manipulative, because vulnerability without reciprocation feels painful. Imagine smiling at someone repeatedly, creating opportunities for connection, showing interest subtly, and getting uncertainty every time in return. Eventually, you stop trying. That's human nature. So when you notice attraction signals, don't panic, but don't ignore them either. Meet the moment. If she leans in, lean in emotionally too. If she creates warmth, reciprocate it. If she touches your arm, don't freeze like a statue. Engage. Smile. Create emotional movement, because attraction grows through participation. And here's something women deeply crave that many men underestimate: feeling emotionally felt, not analyzed, not manipulated. Felt. A woman wants to feel that you genuinely notice her energy, her comfort, her emotions, her shifts in mood, the little things she communicates without words. That awareness creates emotional intimacy incredibly fast. In fact, one of the sexiest things a man has ever said to me wasn't even flirtatious. He looked at me during a conversation and said, "You get quieter when you're genuinely interested in someone." That completely stunned me, because he noticed something real, something subtle, something honest. And that kind of observation creates emotional electricity. Why? Because attention is intimacy. Most people are barely paying attention to each other anymore. They're distracted, performing, waiting for their turn to speak. So when someone truly sees you, it hits differently. And this is the deeper lesson underneath all these attraction signals. Women are not asking you to become a mind reader. They're asking you to become present, observant, emotionally attuned. That's what creates connection. Not lines, not tricks, not manipulation. Presence. And ironically, once you stop obsessing over getting women and start genuinely understanding emotional communication, women usually become far more drawn to you naturally. Because most men only focus on what to say, very few learn how to notice. And the men who notice stand out immediately. So the next time you're sitting across from a woman and she starts touching her hair, tracing her glass, fixing her necklace, mirroring your posture, resting her chin in her hand while staring into your eyes, don't dismiss it. Pay attention, because attraction rarely arrives screaming. Most of the time, it whispers. And the men who change their dating lives are usually the men who finally learn how to hear it. If this video opened your eyes even a little, comment below with the signal you've missed the most in the past. I genuinely want to know. And if you want deeper insights into female psychology, attraction, confidence, and modern dating dynamics, subscribe to Lauren Mind Game and turn on notifications, because the next videos are going to completely transform the way you understand connection. And remember this: a woman's body will often tell you what her words are still afraid to say. The question is, will you finally learn to notice?